So long, go on and do your best. Let all your friends have whiskey on their breath. The world may not be shaken yet, but you might just prove them wrong. Even long shots make it. Just dinna come home too soon. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are now floating in Screamacelica. My name's Kevin Graham, and as usual, I'm joined by Boyce, who's resplendent in a jersey that we're all going to be shouting for in about an hour and a half's time. Boyce, how are you feeling tonight?
Oh, I'm good, mate. I think it's an interesting one tonight. It feels like a familiar old tale that, we've got it all in our own hands, and it could just be one of those nights of glorious failure. But do you know what? I would have took this at the start, I think
of course you would have.
You've got to beat Greece. My concern... Greece, Croatia. What am I getting Greece, mate? Got to beat Greece. I was saying that all thoughtfully in that as well. What am I talking about?
Greece is a word. Greece is a word, mate.
Aye. But I think my concern is there a chance we could still go out even if we win?
I don't think so now. I think after the results with the Ukraine, Russia and Finland yesterday, I think if you win, you're through.
Oh, good. That makes me feel a lot better, because that would have been a perfect storm for us. Do you know what I mean?
It would have been. It would have been. On Friday night, that was the first thing I said. We'll beat Croatia and still end up going out. But here we go. I mean, it's not, as you say, you would have took it before the tournament started.
Aye.
But we've only got, we have only to beat the current world runners-up. So, let's give it a go. I just want us to score, and we'll see what happens after that. Just at least score, and let's see what happens. Russell, have you ever came home too soon and found something that you didn't want to see?
I usually come home late for my tea, Kev. That's my style, mate. No. I've always been guilty of staying out too late, mate. I've never came home and seen anything that I shouldn't have. Thanks for asking.
But for folk who were wondering, at the start, that was Della Mitre. We don't come home too soon, which was the Scottish theme song for the 1998 World Cup.
See, Kev, did you see him? The band played on, I think it was Virgin Radio, about 2 weeks ago.
Did they?
Oh, mate, it was the last to know they were playing, but it was like him with the acoustic guitar, like the accordion and that, and his voice was epic. They looked so much older because they're one of the bands that haven't really been in the limelight as much, you know what I mean, during since their heyday. Some bands are still kind of in the background, and you still see them every couple of years. So to see them for the first time for me anyway, and probably the best part of 15 to 20 years, you're like, wow, I'm getting older, do you know what I mean? Because they definitely look older. But the music, phenomenal. I recommend anyone on YouTube, I know we do the football first, but just while you've talked about Della Mitre, Last to Know by Della Mitre, I think it's Virgin Radio. It'll be on YouTube anyway. Absolutely superb.
I think he's a Tim, Justin Curry. I think he's a Celtic fan, I think he is. We're looking for a fairy tale at 8 o'clock this evening, and we're hoping by 10 o'clock Scotland will have a fairy tale. I'm having a look, and there's no comments, no live chat, so I think everybody else is looking at there's wanting to be a fairy tale as well.
You can't blame them, mate.
Producer Paul comes in with a comment. 100% Justin Curry's a Celtic fan. No problem. So when we were looking for something today this week, because it was Euros themed, there was slim pickings. But then all of a sudden, I remembered a Celtic player that I really liked, and how he was a major player in a fairy tale at the last European Championships, which was 5 years ago.
Yes.
And it was Joe Ledley. And Joe Ledley was a massive part of Celtic for 4 years. He signed for Celtic on July the 12th, 2010. He signed for Celtic on a free transfer. And he played a major role in Wales' qualification for the first competition since the World Cup in 1958. I mean, I think Scotland were bad having to wait 23 years, but to actually wait since 1958 for your first tournament. And not only that, you wait 58 years, since 1958, then you bloody just get to the semi-final. You didn't mess about in the group stage. You didn't just go, oh, we're great to be here.
Oh, no.
You just fire on to the semi-final, beating the number one team in the world at the time on the way to the semi-final as well. So, Joe Ledley, he had left Celtic by this point. He had joined Crystal Palace by this point, but he was always one of these guys that we looked out for. Well, I looked out for him. I liked him at Celtic. I thought he was like he was as if I wanted to do a Welsh accent, which I'm not going to do. He was a bang tidy. he was a bang tidy player. He was very efficient. Box to box, he could score. For me, he wasn't a flash. For me, he was a coach's dream, really. And it was just a shame that injuries tempered his time towards the end of Celtic, and also he was into the last year of his contract, and we'll talk about that after, but he was into his last year of his contract, and he ended up moving to Crystal Palace for a fee rumoured to be £1 million on the 31st of January 2014. If somebody would have asked me, I would have thought Joe Ledley was there longer than 4 years.
I get that side of the argument. Casting your mind back to when he signed, such a big deal. And you know something? It's mad because, and maybe it's just because it's in the present right now, because I did the show, I do the Monday Club, so I'm always kind of maybe comparing too much with the modern day when we do this, but I can't help it. And you just think, when's the next time we're going to have a player turn down an EPL, mid-EPL team, which was Stoke at the time, but they were an established mid-table EPL team at the time, and Roma, right, to come to us. We will, that was when, and you know what's so mad about all the strategies we talk about, Kevin, whether they're tight-fisted or not, the Celtic board backed a guy who was a rookie manager then.
They did, right?
They did. Neil Lennon had never been in charge of a transfer window in his life, and yet they were sanctioning moves for, I think we spoke about it the other week, not just Joe Ledley, but the likes of David James, Sol Campbell, things like that.
Jimmy Bullard.
Jimmy Bullard, yeah. And I just think, the ambition shown to get in Joe Ledley, who at that point was hot property, to say the least.
It was. His club Cardiff had knocked back a few £6 million bids for him.
Yes, £6 million. I remember the exact fee. And that had been one of those in the January, mate.
Mm-hmm.
When he only had 5 months left.
And we got him for nothing because he was under 24 and we didn't need to pay any compensation for him. Because he was over 24. He was over 24.
Was he?
Yeah, he had just turned 24 when we signed him.
I still thought we paid compensation.
No, according to what I read, we didn't pay any compensation for him whatsoever.
I thought we'd got him for a song. We
actually signed him after the World Cup final that year to make sure Cardiff couldn't take us to court. Because there was something about that date. See, we were already shady chancellors at that point under Peter Law.
But do you know something though? Shady chancellors or not, that's good business going for the right players.
Then we used that again for Dembele. We used the exact same rule for Dembele.
Yes. And again, a big sign of ambition. But I was super excited when we got Joe Ledley, Kev. I really was. I just felt things are happening here. There seems to be, we've got our mojo back. I think would I be right in saying the summer before, who did we say? Nguemo on loan?
Mm-hmm.
From Nguemo on loan, because it was Mowbray in charge, wasn't it? The year before.
It was Mowbray, yes. It was
so
Mowbray.
Mowbray brings in I think it was Mowbray. I think Nguemo on loan is one of his main summer signings. We get Joe Ledley on a free. Wales international, coveted by several PL clubs, and had taken the tour out Roma by that point. Mental.
It is mental. It is utterly mental. And the one thing about Joe, and it's one of these things, he got us. He fell in love with us. And as far as I'm aware, his dad still comes up to watch Celtic. His dad is a massive Celtic fan now. And Joe's doing a podcast at the moment with Ellis James, the BBC sort of reporter guy on the Welsh. And Joe is always very, very complimentary about Celtic. He doesn't hide the fact that he loves Celtic. Now, Wales qualified for this group, this tournament, by finishing second with 21 points behind Belgium, who they went on to play in the quarterfinals of this tournament. The only game that they lost in this was to Bosnia 2-0, but they qualified by that point. And on 9th of May 2016, Chris Coleman, who was a highly rated manager after this tournament, I think he got offered the Pickies jobs after this tournament, but ended up going to Sunderland, which I didn't really understand.
That was a bit later, though, wasn't it?
Aye. He named 29 players on the 9th of May 2016, a 29-player squad, 2 days after Joe Ledley had broke his leg playing for Crystal Palace, and Joe Ledley was named in the Wales squad in the 29. Yep. It was a minor fracture of the tibia, and they reckoned that Ledley would be out to 3 to 4 weeks, and he would make the first game against Slovakia, because by this time Wales were drawn in Group B, and they were drawn with England, Slovakia, and Russia. A very tough group for your first tournament since 1958. So they gave Ledley every single chance to make this. And when I was researching this, there was a thing on Wales Online, and it was reporting that Joe Ledley had broke his leg. And they had a picture of Joe Ledley's I had a picture of Joe Ledley's left leg. That's very difficult to say.
Joe Ledley's left leg.
I had a picture of Joe Ledley's left leg on the front page of their website, and also on the printed press, asking you to put your hand on it and to pray for Joe, pray that he made it to the Euros.
Wow!
So that shows you how they wanted divine intervention for the Rock, as they called him, to make it to the Euros, because he was such a revered character. By this point, he wasn't the clean shaven Joe and the good looking guy that we had at Celtic. He looked like one of the guys you get in the films that you find behind outgrown bushes. So you get the films when kids are looking for this old man to come and take them on an adventure, and they know where the treasure is. That's what Joe Ledley looked like, with a big beard and the sticky up hair, and it looked like he had been living in a cave for the last 20 years.
I think his performances dipped after he got that beard. You know, I'm telling you.
I didn't think they dipped in this tournament. I mean,
no, I had a good tournament. No, I did have a good tournament, but I don't like the beard anyway. Is what I'm trying to say. So I just thought I'd try and associate it with him not playing as well either.
I actually thought it made him look like a Celtic warrior. I thought there was a bit of see how, don't remember the Romanian teams all dyed their hair blonde in the 98, I was going to say 94, the 98 World Cup. I think there was a part of that for it. I think it was just I'm going to look like a vagrant here. I'm going to look mad. I'm going to look mad. You didn't want to tackle me because I'm Mad Joey guy for Cardiff Bay. So he did make the squad. When the squad was cut to 26, right? He did make it, even though he wasn't fit at that point. So did Joe Allen, who has been linked with Celtic at this time because Brendan Rodgers had just joined. So
that's right.
So Brendan Rodgers was just joined. An ex-Celtic player was cut for the 29-man squad when it went to 26. Can you guess who it is?
Adam Matthews.
Adam Matthews didn't.
Yes!
Adam Matthews didn't actually make it. He was in the 29, but didn't make the 26. An Aberdeen player made the 26.
Oh no, don't. Oh, stop. Is it Darren Watt? The goalie? No, what's he called?
Simon Church.
Simon Church, wow.
Simon Church. A player for Aberdeen made that Euro squad. Paul comes in, top 5 beards in Celtic's history. Right away he comes in with number 1, Daniel Fergus McGrain. Aye, yeah. That's the only beard.
As soon as you said it, it's all I thought of.
That's the only beard that we need in Celtic's history. Oh, Rab McNair, Samaras. All right. We'll not be Samaras. Well,
what about I know it's not a full beard, but I like to know his wee sort of goatee thing going on, man. Ononi was cool.
Aye. What about Paul Hartley? Does Paul Hartley?
Oh yeah, Paul Hartley's his rock and roll, man. Do you know? See when he used to play for Hearts with Presley. I know we're going away on a tangent, but who cares? You know when he used, you know when he used to play at Hearts and he'd line up like alongside Presley. We used to always say he looked like Tom and Serge for Kasabian.
What I loved about Hartley, and I've said this before, was the fact is you could start a game clean shaven and end it with a beard.
That's so true. It's so true.
So Wales went to this tournament and got out their group. They won the group with 6 points, even though they got defeated with a last-minute Daniel Sturridge goal against England. So they beat Slovakia 2-1 with Bale and Robson Kanu scoring. They lost to England. Bale scored again. And they beat Russia 3-0 in their final game. When they had to win, they beat Russia 3-0. Scotland, I hope you're listening. And Ramsey, Taylor and Bale scored. Then again, you look at that. Gareth Bale's our main man. Bale is the one it drags them to a different level. So does Aaron Ramsey. Aaron Ramsey and Gareth Bale are 2 world-class players. And even at this tournament, they're proving it. They're proving that they can take Wales up a different level.
Bale's display, not the last match, the match before, when he put Ramsey through twice before the one that Ramsey eventually scored. And all 3 of the balls that he puts through, playing a deeper role, you know, it just shows you. I think someone like Bale could. He's that good. It's like he could play anywhere in the park. He's just a quality.
Just quality. Is that Ramsey and Bale are that quality that Scotland need in the final third? Our quality is in different areas of the field, but we need that sort of match difference quality in the final third. I mean, we've got 2 of the best left backs in the world. I mean, what other nation ends up with 2 left backs who are the best in the world? So they got out the group, and Joe Ledley came on as a sub in the first game against Slovakia in 69 minutes. So he made it 3 and a bit weeks after he broke his leg. He made it to play for Wales in that tournament. He never missed a game after that. He never missed a game. He never got subbed. He never came on as a sub. He started every single game after that. First game at the group sections, the last 16, they played Northern Ireland, and they won 1-0 with future Rangers reject Gareth McCauley scoring an OG. He scored an OG after 75 minutes. I always like to see Northern Ireland getting beat when you've got guys like Gareth McCauley, Steve Davis and Lafferty playing. It's always good. It's always good. Lafferty was up top for them that day. So it's always good. It's always good to see him greeting. It's always nice. So they then move to the quarter final. A quarter final in your first appearance since 1958. This is utterly bizarre. This is new fairy tale territory. You're further than what you ever want to be, and they go to play the number 1 side in the world, Belgium, and Lille. What do you remember about that night? Because it was a Friday night. What do you remember about that night? You would have had the pub at this point, so it would have been...
No.
So
I left the pub in February 2016.
All right.
And
remember that?
it was cool. No, I wanted to leave. So I'd walked away, a couple of quid in my pocket, right? And then basically it was like, right, go to Glasgow. So I've never conquered Glasgow yet. So I decided to take the Euros off. I took the summer off, basically. I just lived out my jeans pocket, scrumpled up change under the couch, Kev, And I had the bet. The Euro 2016 was just such a great time. Discovering Glasgow every day. Like, I'd only been out in Glasgow at nights, do you know what I mean? It never really done it justice. See, like, part here, and like, I lived in the West End, so it was like just cutting about Kelvin Grove Park's right, the flat there, cutting about Kelvin Grove Park every day and that, like, and then going to the museum just whenever I wanted, just for something to do. I was loving it. And then get home for the Euros. And we went down to a bar, I bought my Hope Street. Can't think of the name of it now. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. It was rammed. And the place, you may as well have thought it was a Scotland game. That's how much folk were jumping up and down for the Welsh in this match, in this quarter-final. And I thought that was, firstly, surprising, because I really wanted them to do well. But I'm like, I didn't expect it to be such sort of, you don't really, you only class when folk talk about the UK. I'm not getting political here, but when folk talk about the UK and not liking the UK, they really mean England. You know what I mean? I think a lot of the time. And then particularly Southern England, as opposed to even like the North England, like, isn't really a problem. So it's like, I still didn't expect to see that many folk cheering for another country of these shores as much. I know you get it a lot by Ireland and stuff from Celtic fans and at loads of Irish bars, but this place was going mad. For the Welsh, and I thought it was great that was and it's made me think, do you think there'll be a pub, in Wales right now, maybe doing the same for the Scots if they pulled off a shock tonight, with a last-minute winner or something like that against Croatia? You never know.
I think there's a Celtic connection. I think there's going to be a Celtic connection. Facebook user comes in, Russell, and says, "Was it the Rock Garden, the name of the pub?"
No, it's beside the Ruby Doo or whatever it's called, kind of like the Irish bar. There's like, oh man, there's like the Smoking Fox, and then across by that there's like Nando's Irish bar, another bar, and then the one up by there. It's a pretty plastic pub, like, to be honest, but it was it was jumping for that game, and you couldn't help but buy in. See, when you've got, like, you're in that environment, everyone's cheering the same team. It's brilliant. And it was quite refreshing, the fact it's a team you didn't normally cheer on. But that Welsh team, I think, had guys, we speak about this a lot, Kev, that you wanted to see do well. Relatable guys. Even for like Ashley Williams, I thought, he's came into the Premier League probably when he was just about turning 30. Nobody had heard of him, until then. Now he's Wales captain, he's a Lion. Do you know what I mean? It was just, I love stuff like that.
I think it's the beauty of football. I think everybody likes an underdog story, especially us, the small nations. We like seeing smaller nations doing well, but because that's just the way that we're built. That Wales side, the Wales side that lined up that night was Wayne Hennessy in goals. That was how it got in trouble for the team picture on the night out. That goalie for the Nazi salute. Was it that goalie? Or was he dressed? Was he dressed? Well, anyway, Hennessy, Chester, Ashley Williams, Ben Davis, Neil Taylor, Joe Allen, Joe Ledley, Aaron Ramsey, Chris Gunter, Robson Canu, Bale. I mean, there's a lot of Premiership experience in that side. That is a decent side. But when you add Ramsey and Bale into that, you can actually see why they maybe go as far as what they did, because Bale is a really, really special player, and so is Ramsey.
I've got the vibe that team was a lot of good. I think there's a lot of good Premier League experience. I wouldn't say any PL player that has excelled other than the two that aforementioned that you meant, right? But I think the rest are very much bottom half, or if they go to a top half team, sort of rotated sort of PL player. Good experience, don't get me wrong, but not folk that would, really crazy excited. Maybe Williams the exception for that, because I think he was under Rodgers at Swansea when he got them up, maybe 2014, and I think he really did come on sort of leaps and bounds.
The majority of this Welsh team came through the Welsh age groups together, so there was a club mentality about them. They had been together for about a decade, the majority of them.
It's interesting you say that, because when we're talking about Joe Ledley and Aaron Ramsey, do you remember them absolutely, with Robert Earnshaw scoring a hat-trick, I think, against Scotland? Yes. But it was Ramsey that night. I think he must have been 18, 19. And him and Ledley in the midfield literally blew us apart. Absolutely blew us to smithereens. And it's funny you say that, because you're right. That's these partnerships or these connections, these relationships on the field developing for a long time. I would hazard a guess that Scotland-Wales game was, 2010 or something?
It would have been, no, remember, we were always linked with Robert Earnshaw at the time as well, under Martin O'Neill. That was another thing. Paul comes in with a statement. Mark Hughes is my favourite Welsh player of all time. we couldn't go through a Welsh podcast without mentioning Mark Hughes.
Tell him to close down his Twitter.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. The Belgian team that night, they had quite a few injuries that night, and it saw, again, a Celtic connection come in. Jason Denayer came in for them because Vermaelen was injured, and also Jordan Lukaku, up front Lukaku's little brother, came in at fullback. But you look at their midfield, the midfield, you still had Witsel, Nangolan, who was absolutely phenomenal at this point. I saw him, I went to Rome this year to watch Roma against Lazio, and he was the best player on the pitch.
Did you?
He was the best player on the pitch, head and shoulders. Eden Hazard, De Bruyne, Carrasco and Lukaku up front. So this is a number one team at the world. The favourites for this tournament, turning up against a squad that's got spirit and a bit of quality in the right areas. But who could get their hairs on the back of their neck standing up when you hear the Welsh sing Faith of Our Fathers?
Classic, mate.
When I was watching the highlights of this game today, I was like, wow, that's a national anthem.
I remember that
is a national anthem.
Yeah, and do you know something as well? I've always got the vibe, Scotland, in my experience, has always been a wee bit embarrassing about singing the national anthem. Now, I put a bit of that down to the anthem itself. I didn't think the anthem's very good. But secondly, I'm always like, it's a Scottish thing. It's like, we're all gallus to a point, and then for me to stand up and sing hymns at school, do you know what I mean? We're all like, and then it's like, we do the national anthem. I think Steve Clarke's tried to implement a bit of that. He's trying to get them to put their arms around each other when they do it and stuff, because for a long time, basically, neither of them sang it. You look at the Welsh one and you can tell there's a togetherness and a real pride in what they're singing, which I just get the vibe that Flower of Scotland, for whatever reason it is, there's been a bit there's been nothing like that. It's been the polar opposite. Let's be honest, kid. Think over the years how many times you've seen the camera pan by someone and they've just had their mouth shut and they're not got their arm around anyone or anything like that. And I think you look at the Welsh one, they're that close together, arms around each other, and they're bellowing it, mate. And they're singing it for each other. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a real bond, I don't know, team unity about it. And I think Scotland maybe needs to get a wee bit of that. You know, it's great to go down, and I know this annoys Roy Keane with Irish fans, you know, you just go down there to party. It's a waste of time. You know, it's like, he says he's here to win. And I think, you know, it's great having a laugh and all that and doing all the sillies, but when it comes to it, you know, get a bit between your teeth, man, you know what I mean? We'll maybe see a difference tonight, right enough.
When you're talking about national anthems, I mean, what you've got to remember is, I reckon up until the 82 World Cup, Scotland's, when they played the national anthem for Scotland in World Cups, it was God Save the Queen. Up until I think about I'm going to say 1990, I think, was the first time that they used Scotland the Brave. I think so. Somebody can maybe come in and thing with that. But I remember when you actually have a look at like the 74 World Cup and the 78 World Cup, well, especially the 74 one, when they start playing God Save the Queen, the looks on the Scotland fans, the Scotland players' faces as a picture, because they're like, what are you playing that for? That's no. And I mean, Scotland the Brave for me was a bit, it's a bit shortbready, eh? And Flower of Scotland. I mean, did you see the tweet? Radio 5 Live says after Flower of Scotland was played at Wembley on Friday night, that was written after 13-14 about the Battle of Bannockburn. Now, I didn't ken the Corries were that all day. So, I mean, that must have been that the guy Corrie that wrote it must have been about 600 years old when it became a hit.
My honest opinion, Kev, I would shorten down Loch Lomond and I would make that the national anthem.
Like that, like end of wedding night thing.
But it's only became the end of wedding night thing because it's an anthem. I would sing that 100%. I think that would get the place rocking, mate.
I didn't ken.
Aye, I'm telling you.
Dignity be Deacon Blue.
No.
I'm just chucking things out there, mate.
I would honestly, I think they should change it, because I think Flower of Scotland doesn't get the juices for. I don't think he gets. It's sad, and I hate the fact we're singing about them. I hate that. Like, I'm like,
that's just a folk song thing, ain't it? That's just.
But folk getting up, that's everyone's favourite bit, you know, singing about Proud Edward or whatever, and you're like, that to me is you're giving them too much respect. They love being in the song. Scotland's national anthem, you mentioned England, you know, it's just. Come on, as if that would never be on their wavelength, mate.
No, it wouldn't be. The dude abides come in. The national anthem should be the proclaimer tune, but only the chorus.
Just the chorus.
Da da da.
Get it up, dude.
Get it up. Oh, right. This game starts, and Belgium had Wales under siege. Hennessy had a couple of saves at the start of this game, and it looked like Wales were in for a long night.
It's the scramble in the box, which was pretty early on. When I was watching that, I got kind of like quite pumped up watching it though. I think Hennessy might save the first one, and then there's another shot, but the Leeds defenders just throwing themselves at this ball. It actually looks like a sea of dead bodies in the box by the time the ball's like the phase of plays ended. It is wild how willing they were just to throw themselves at the ball, but it's like 1, 2, 3 shots all from like penalty spot sort of area. That's what it takes, mate, to beat the best teams though. You've got to all be pulling the same direction, eh?
You have got to be pulling in the same direction. Archduke 8199 comes in, and I thought this, but I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. Does God Save the Queen not mention crushing rebellious Scots? I think it does in the second verse. I think it does. I wouldn't ken either, but I'm sure there's a second verse of God Save the Queen which mentions crushing rebellious. I didn't think they get that far. It's like the old Roy Aitken line. I didn't ken the second line to the sash because we've usually scored by that point.
Brilliant.
So the guy I was talking about, the Roma guy, Nangolan, scores an absolute worldly in 13 minutes. This is an absolute peach. This game's actually got like 3 great goals. Absolutely 3 brilliant goals. This is a 25-yard shot that he didn't take a touch. When the pass comes into him, he hits it first time. And he's got all the time in the world, but he fires this right into the top corner. What a goal, Russell. Peach.
He smokes more than me too, Big Nangland. I'm telling you, he likes a fag more than I do. He's that technique is frightening. And remember as well, that ball's gone in near post for the keeper. He just nothing can move. No goalkeeper in the world can move fast enough to prevent that. And I just love the angle it goes in at the keeper's post as well. He's just a one-off worldy strike, isn't it? It's absolutely top class.
It is. It's a great strike, and this seems to rejuvenate Wales. And Wales come back into the game here, and that's the thing about playing Belgium. And I think you even saw that playing the Belgians now. The way that they play, they give up chances. And I think the Welsh knew that they were going to get chances in this game. And if they hug on long enough, they would have to take one of these chances. So the equalising 31 minutes, and the big guy that you've been praising, Ashley Williams, corner kick, gets away from Jason Denayer. He's more determined than Jason Denayer to get on the end of this header. Yeah. And headers the ball into the back of the net. It's a great header. And from that point on, the Welsh team absolutely run over the top of the Belgian side before half-time. And they are really unlucky not to actually go in at half-time in front the amount of chances that they had.
Agreed, but it's one of those things as well. This is Screamacelica, so it's one of those traits that I would compare with how Celtic used to react in Europe in the good old days of me growing up, watching Martin O'Neill's teams. We used to go a goal down, the crowd would erupt, the players would get the bit between their teeth. I think the game that strikes me that I would compare to it would be Stuttgart. And we went to goal down, Kevin Karani, I'm sure, scored, and then we went on and beat them 3-1, minus Henrik. But it was like the goal he scored, that just jolted us into life. And see, when you've got a team unity like that, they all just, they get cheesed off, mate. I know that sounds really simple, but they get annoyed. And it's like, right then. And they start playing more impulsively, which is a great thing to have. Again, sports science is such a big thing right now, or stats and Opta and all that nonsense. You cannot put on a spreadsheet some factors that play in football. You just can't. And if you want to talk about XG, for example, Kev, what was Wales' expected goals before the game? 0.
I couldn't be a monkeys, man. XG,
nah.
what's all of that about? Just bang the ball into the back of the net and take your chances, man.
And what you need to remember as it comes into it is then the pressure that you're under, the weight of the occasion, the stage of the tournament that you're now in. So what, ramifications there are for either qualifying or going out. The fact there's a nation on your shoulders, the pressure that comes with that, your bottle, all these things you cannot put on spreadsheets and try and quantify. It is not possible. And yet Wales do all the stuff that the stats would tell you they wouldn't do. And that's what I love.
It's emotion, ain't it? It is emotion. It's a crowd emotion. You look at the Danes last night beating Russia 4-1. For those who listen on the podcast later on and listen in years' time, I'll quantify it what night we actually recorded this. So the Danes last night, 30-odd thousand in Copenhagen, made a great racket, 1-4-1 get through. But you can't tell me that they weren't carried by the emotion of that crowd as well. And I think international football is one football that benefits from emotion and from civic pride, country pride and that as well. Maybe more than the drilled club side.
No, I like what you're saying there. I agree with that.
So you look at Wales. There's probably 20-odd thousand Welshmen in that stadium that night. They equalise. They go berserk and they go, "Come on, we can do this." If they're going to the 11 Belgian players, you just don't need to beat the 11 guys on the park. You've also got to beat us. You've also got to get past us, and that is something that can't be missed. And I think it's something that I can be didn't want to, but I think it is something that Celtic missed as well, especially under Neil Lennon. I think Lennon's teams played on emotion, and I think you see this Wales team playing on emotion as well at this point, especially when they go 2-1 up. They go 2-1 up in 55 minutes with one of the greatest goals that you'll ever see scored in a European tournament. Robson Kanu sends the whole Welsh defence. Robson Kanu sells the whole Belgian defence out for a paper with this twist, and he sells the goalkeeper, he sells the denier, he sells the three different. He sells like 4 defenders with this turn. It's a Cruyff turn by a guy who was just released by Reading at the time. He didn't have a club when he done this.
Unbelievable. It's goosebumps when you watch the goal as well, Kev. It is that good. And again, like I'm going to say the word again, impulsive. He probably's never done that in training once. It's just came to him. A moment of magic, a moment of pure inspiration. And you're absolutely right. I think it's about 3 of them he sends for a hot dog. You know what I mean? And then he's then dealing with probably the number 1 goalie in the world at that time, about to join Real Madrid. But
the fact is, he's done the turn, right? And the keeper's weight's already gone that way as well. So the keeper's like already, but I didn't expect that. So the keeper's weight's already
that's a good point.
And he can't get back across in time, eh?
But it's a very cool, calm, collected finish all the same.
I would put money on that if he would have attempted that in training with a fell across the ball. He would have stood on the ball or something. If he actually thought about doing that, he's standing on the ball. I mean, it's a great bit of skill and what a fantastic goal. And what I love is all the Welsh fans are behind that goal. They go absolutely ballistic, man. I can't wait to be back in something like that. I can't wait to some sweaty stranger hugging me and some random goal, man. I can't wait for that.
Sounds good, right?
It does. It sounds brilliant. Obviously, you're playing the number 1 team in the world, and there's an onslaught. Belgium absolutely push them. the Welsh get lucky twice. There's maybe 2 penalty shouts, but eventually on 86 minutes, Vokes scores another great header for the corner of the 6-yard box after a cross for Chris Gunter. As I say, you've got Nangolan's goal, you've got Robson Canu's goal, and you've got this goal. 3 utterly cracking goals.
Vokes' header's superb.
It's a great header. It's a very difficult thing to do what he done from that 100%. angle at the corner of the box. And then the whole nation goes mental. Scotland goes mental. Everybody goes, Jesus, that's Wales into the semi-finals of the Euros. Then you get the videos afterwards, like Ledley dancing in front of the.
That's right.
Ledley dancing in front of the Wales fans. The Wales fans going mental. Then in the dressing room, and Ledley doing the dance on the treatment table, and like.
That's the one I remember.
And you can actually see that he is a massive part of that Welsh team spirit. That's the reason that Wales Online were asking you to pray for Joe, because of what he brought to that team. It was his hair. More than football, it was his hair. It was his beard. Football and ability, but spirit, attitude. He was
influence.
To quote Gordon Stratton, he looked a right good teammate. He looked like somebody that you wanted in the trenches with you.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And just to go back to my point, just something you can't quantify in a spreadsheet, mate. And that's the important thing about football. That's why science will never beat football. Do you know what I mean? Football's something that is played on the park with every single match that's played under a completely brand new, fresh set of circumstances that haven't happened before. That's what I love. Because whilst there's been a million World Cup finals or whatever, there's all different reasons for there being pressure on one team and the other team. There's different expectancy. There's different climates they're playing in at the time. There's different players out of form going into these matches, or maybe under pressure from their own supporters because they've been out of form. All these factors need to be taken in. And I just think as well, see, when you've got the will of the country behind you like Wales did, it helps.
Definitely. It does definitely help. And I think it also helps that you've got a vast travelling support there as well. I think that does help, and I think hopefully it'll help us at Hampden tonight, having some form of support there. One thing that I want to go back to with Wales there. The Belgian manager at the time was Mark Wilmots, and this was his last game in charge of Belgium. He left soon afterwards and was replaced by Roberto Martinez,
of course,
who brought Sean Maloney after that. When you look at Ledley, and you look at what he'd done in a Celtic top, he was there for 4 seasons, got 3 league titles in a Scottish Cup, scored in a Scottish Cup final. My favourite Joe Ledley goal is not the one that I saw in your pub that time. It was the one away in Rennes, which was a great away trip. That's my last European away trip, actually, was Rennes away. And Ledley scored a header that night, and that was brilliant that night. The Celtic support were fantastic that night in Rennes. When we're talking about the Welsh support, the Celtic support in Rennes that night was phenomenal. And I remember actually singing for Joe Ledley, and when he scored that equaliser, we're talking about being a sweaty mess, jumping up and down with folk. I think we were out the competition by this point.
Right.
I think it was just, and that was a goal that Chaduri famously scored for the halfway line in his own net, unfortunately. And I was disappointed when Joe Ledley left Celtic. I must admit, I was gutted that he left Celtic because he got us. And he did come out and say after it he was going to sign the contract, but he turned up to training and was told that he was sold. Another Peter Lawwell production, do you think?
Yes. Yeah. The only thing I would say is I'm not convinced I'm not convinced Ledley was playing it all the time. I mean, I don't know if
he did have a hip injury. He was in and out the side, but you're talking about 2 years later, he's the main man in the Euros.
I know. What could have been? No, 100%. I wonder with sometimes with players, I don't mean any disrespect to Ledley, I really don't. But I wonder if they rewrite history a wee bit as well. You know, see if you were to believe all the football interviews you watch, they would have you all believe that we're dedicated professionals, nearly all of them anyway. And you think, or they were all, you know, the last in, last out at the training ground, or they had total affection for this club. I think nostalgia maybe gets to players once they leave as well. I would have signed the contract. Well, was the contract offer made? Did you not? I'm not trying to be harsh on him, by the way, because it wouldn't surprise me one iota if it was a Peter Lawwell production, Kev. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate.
He's got previous with us with wee Jackie as well, when wee Jackie ended up at Wolves.
Remember that?
He's got previous with us. Gary Hooper didn't want to leave when he was Celtic.
I was surprised at that. I thought he did want to leave.
No, Gary Hooper didn't. He came out virtually right away and says, I wanted to stay at Celtic. I was willing to sign that contract. But as you say, a lot of these players leave Celtic and they realise it's the biggest club that they're ever going to play for. Yep. It's the best years of their career when they look back. They go, by God, I should have stayed there longer. I should have went to Sheffield Wednesday. I should have went to Crystal Palace. But Ledley says it at the time. When he signed for Crystal Palace, he went, I was going to sign that contract. He did say that. So you can only take his word with it, and I would rather believe Joe Ledley at this point.
Yeah, that's true. Me too. No, me too. I was just trying to give two sides to the debate, but no, I'm fully in agreement. I would much rather subscribe to what Joe said.
But then there is a wee twist in this, because in 2019, Ledley asked Celtic to come back and train.
I knew this was going to come up.
Did you? You can read my mind there. Ledley asked Celtic to come back and train, and he was not back, which makes me think that this is a Peter Lawwell production. The first thing, he left the first time, then badmouthed the club after it, and when he came back asking for training facilities, he was not back. And I'll put money on it wasn't Neil Lennon that knocked him back. I'll put money on it wasn't Neil Lennon.
So you think because he went public that he wanted to sign a new deal, they've held a grudge? Oh, yeah. Wow. I really, see if that is the case, stuff like that really disappoints me, because we're bigger than that. That's petty. See someone that, like you rightfully pointed out, gives 4-year service, part of 3 league title winning sides, and they're asking for a wee favour, free training, not paying him to come here and train, just to train. I dare say at the back of Joe Ledley's mind at 32 years old at that point, there was a bit of him going, and you never know. See, maybe, because if you're a professional sportsman, you always believe the magic can come back.
Definitely.
You never think, he would have maybe held in hope in that, but there's nothing wrong with a bit of hope. And if Joe Ledley was wanting to come up and use our facilities to stay fit, that's shocking if the reason for Celtic saying no to that was something as petty as an interview Joe Ledley came, where all he was really saying was he actually loved the club, that he actually wanted to stay, in theory. You're now punishing him for that. That's shocking, that, Kev. I don't like that.
Well, the reason I think it could be, the reason I think it is, Neil Lennon. Now, Neil Lennon, since he's been doing the tour of his, after losing the Celtic job, he's been on the media treadmill, and he's been talking about a certain player coming back, players that wanted to be at the club, players that understand the club, and the rumours were that last summer he wanted to let the ones who wanted to go, and he wanted to bring in a certain type of player who understood the club and what this season meant to the club, like Shane Duffy. Right, Shane Duffy knew what the season meant to the club. Rumours are he also wanted to run back Charlie Mulgrew because he knew the club. He wanted to bring what's the guy named Snodgrass from West.
That's right.
He wanted to bring Snodgrass, a Glaswegian guy, Celtic supporter who knew the club. He wanted to bring James McLean because McLean knows the whole Irish history of Celtic. So this is where I'm thinking this is a Peter Lawwell production, that Joe Ledley didn't get training facilities because Neil Lennon would have took Ledley back.
I would have thought so. I would have thought he would have certainly. I think Lennon would have been smart enough to know he hadn't played enough football of late, because I think at Derby County he wasn't a regular, I don't think.
No, but you're getting the chance to take a player who's done you a turn
To train, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I think Neil Lennon 100%. No, I'm agreeing with that. I think Lennon would be smart enough to go, he's not coming here on a trial as such. If I'm, pleasantly surprised, then, I'll keep my options open on it. But Neil Lennon, for all his faults, certainly knew how to be loyal to players. And I certainly think that Joe Ledley would have been someone he built up a really strong relationship with in the 4 years they were both there. And I'd have had no doubt that Neil Lennon would have said yes to that, Kev. No doubt at all.
I've got no doubt either. And I mean, I don't know if it would have worked out or that, but when you now look back at the whole narrative, which is now in a perfect circle, you can go,
oh, you've done well there.
I reckon Neil Lennon did the note back Joe Ledley. I think that's fair. I think that came from higher up in the club, because Neil Lennon would have took Joe Ledley back for that training to have a look at him. Definitely. We'll move on, Russell, because we're all getting PMT, the pre-match nerves here. So we'll move on to the music. Yep. And what we'll do is the singles chart on the 1st of July 2016. Number 1, One Dance by Drake. Pass. Didn't care what it sounds like.
I don't even know the point in going through these.
Number 2, Kungs versus Cooking on a Free Burners. This girl. Nah.
I hate the modern music so much.
Does anybody care what Cooking on a Free Burner's been? I don't care what that means either. Right, you want to talk about the Strokes. Let's talk about the Strokes.
Yep, so they had a EP out called Future Past Present. I'll be honest, I wasn't familiar with it. It was just I seen them and I thought it was too good an opportunity not to talk about, to me, an extremely cool looking but very talented rock and roll band. And rock and roll. They genuinely, especially the first 2 albums, just were like your typical band that you like your high school band would practice just 2 guitars, bass, drums, singer, and like that. So their sounds really resonated with me when I was young. So obviously I was in a high school band and all that stuff, you know what I mean? And it was just sounds that I recognised, but obviously they're doing it in a way that's got brilliant melodies and great choruses and fantastic songs. But I was quite intrigued by this EP because it went past my radar. The first song I felt they tried to be a bit Joy Division with the sort of moody bass lines, but then there's a track, and it's the 3rd track, which the name's escaping me, but I've got it here.
Is it Oblivious?
And it was Threat of Joy.
Right.
And it is very much an old Strokes formula. So when you listen to it, it sounds, firstly, you get glimpses of Someday from it. Mm-hmm. And then you start thinking, right, it's a song in its own right, but that's the reminiscence I'm getting is Someday. I mean, whilst we're talking about the Strokes, I mean, Is This It as a first album blew my mind. The first time I heard Last Night, right, this is the honest truth.
You can still hear that drum beat, the start of it,
So good. And my mum was dropping me off at my mate's house. I even know where I was getting dropped off, like who my pal was, it was middle of the afternoon. And that came on 12:15 a.m. Virgin Radio. So it was still Virgin then, 2001 this would have been. And I remember loving the song it was on. I'd never heard it before. And I says, oh, who sang that? Mum, she goes, how am I meant to know? I says, oh, it's ancient. And she says, I've never heard that in my life. So I went in and told my mate about it, and he knew it. He says, come down to the stairs. He had Sky and all that. I didn't have Sky. We had the music channels. I had Sky Sports. I didn't have the music channels. So you had to pay for them separately then, because that was a big deal. He had them, and we just watched. It was was it Q? I think the radio station might have been Q.
Q had a music channel, they did.
I think it was Q. And if not, it was another one. There's other music channels available now too. But eventually it came on that day, and I was like, see? And then you watch the video, and I went, this is ancient.
It's a perfect video, It is a
I also thought the microphone he's using, the way the band look, I was like, I told you it was ancient. And my mate says, what are you not getting? This is a brand new song. So that is my wee interesting story about last night. I thought it was that good that it sounded like a rock and roll legendary song from years gone by, Kev.
That's a compliment. That is a compliment, because they look like a classic rock and roll band. They did look perfect together, and they had like every one of them was more gorgeous than the next one. That's it, and they just had that. The drummer, if your drummer's cool as anything, if the drummer's one of the coolest guys in the band, you're on to a winner.
Must be a cool band.
Aye, you're on to a winner if your drummer is absolutely looks that good. Like basically playing the drums, eh? And you're right about This Is It. What a fantastic album.
A phenomenon, mate.
Someday and all of that. I don't think they maybe reached the heights that I expected them to do after this.
Me neither.
I went to see them when they had just released their second single. I went to see them at the Edinburgh Liquid Rooms.
Right.
That would have been in 2000.
Love the Liquid Rooms.
I saw them in the Edinburgh Liquid Rooms, and I think it was a rubbish venue for them, to tell you the truth. I can't really remember it blowing my mind. I can't remember coming out going, I've seen a great big hint here, but and I was driving that night too, so
that half explains it.
I don't know, eh? And strangely enough, I haven't seen them live since, which is bizarre as well.
Well, it was another funny one because they played Tea in the Park 2012. I think it was 2012 or 2014. I think it was 2012. Anyway, me and my mate were like, we love the song New York City Cops. And, you know, you're in a haze at Tea in the Park, right? And we've ended up coming up with this theory. Imagine if they played New York City Cops first. And we just kept saying it to each other. We had no idea. And they did. And I thought that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't in the state I'm in right now. Like, it was mad. But at that time, which there was, see what I think of the Strokes? There was glimpses of returns to form, Kev. And I appreciate what you're saying. I think I don't think they built on the foundations of Is This It? I thought Room on Fire had a lot of good moments as well. If maybe already your second favourite Strokes album out of two, it was still I thought it was still a strong enough album that this could still go somewhere. And then I thought it was flickers of good songs, if you know what I mean, as opposed to enjoying full albums or the majority. But Under the Cover of Darkness, you ken that song?
Aye.
I mean, that was just, boom, that could have walked on Is This It? And that was them back to their exact formula that they were using in 2001 with that song. And if anyone's not heard that, it is an absolute, what a rock and roll song. It was quite nice to hear something from a few years later that I wasn't aware of today. And I've now got one more tune for the Spotify, which is kind of the point of Screamacelica, Kev. It's always about...
Have you heard... I would also recommend that you check out that Normal World that the Strokes released last year. That is a really, really good album. That is a really good album, aye.
I will.
It is. I think they all just fell out with each other because they were too cool, too many egos, and just looked too good.
They are too cool.
And actually just thought, I'm better than you, and they just had that wee bit of like friction with each other.
Just quickly on the Strokes, Kev. Yes. I remember, you know the festival. A wee bit of self-indulgence, right? But you know the festival Rewind, the 80s festival at Scone Palace. It'd be your Antichrist of music, and I get that.
Right.
But I've went a few years, right? Loved it, right? And I've loved it.
You actually seem to me like you could be a Duran fan, actually.
It was like Billy Ocean headlining that, man. But the good thing about Rewind is if the act that comes on's crap, they're off. They only play their hits. They only play like 3 or 4 songs, and that's them anyway. So you're not standing about like a full set. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, the alternative entertainment is this karaoke tent that probably holds, I'm not exaggerating, I would say 1,000 people, maybe more. The typical sort of blue tent you would see at Tea in the Park. Or, well, maybe not one of the blue ones, like with the, you know, anyway. And they were doing live band karaoke.
Live band karaoke? So
it's a live band playing. So obviously, again, feeling Billy Big Boss, I've went, what songs that they got? So they had a huge, like,
as long as you're not feeling Scott Baines, you're fine.
I've went up, they've got this huge board, which is maybe has 80 songs on it. and you've got that's because that's obviously the band's repertoire. Maybe it was 100, I don't know. And I've seen Last Night by the Strokes. I'm well on, mate, and you know what I mean. And I've ended up like, I'll do that, man. I went up, and when she's called my name, my mate's like, no way. Like, this place is rammed. And like, they're all like, everyone's clapping when you go up. I kiss the woman who's done the ticket on the cheek, take the microphone off her hand, and go around the band and shake all their hands before we play. And the guitarist goes to me and goes, oh, not you, kid. Straight away. And I kind of, I was like, where's the words?
Did you try to sell you a second-hand motor as well after that impression?
That's what he said, though. But I was just prancing a bit of stage singing last night, man. Anyway, but it was good fun. It was my biggest crowd to date, Kev, you know what I mean?
Brilliant. There you go. That's your claim to fame. Did it go down well to an audience, aunties, uncles and grannies?
It's an easy enough vocal, and none of the rest of them knew what the original sounded like. So you're absolutely right. Moira, 57 for Perth, didn't have a clue whether I nailed it or no.
Well, Moira, 57 for Perth. This is getting very dear Deirdre, actually, when I say stuff like that. I was having a look at the album charts to try and pick an album for this. And luckily enough, number 1 was Adele at 25. Number 2 was Coldplay, Head Full of Dreams. And number 3 was All Over the World, the greatest hits of ELO. And I went, I'm having that. Yes. I'm having that because it's a bit of a guilty pleasure, ain't it? ELO, perfect pop songs. And this is the hits between 1973 and to 1983. So it's got like Mr. Blue Sky, Evil Woman, Don't Bring Me Down. And for me, my favourite song at the moment is Telephone Line. I absolutely love Telephone Line.
Yeah, you said that the other week.
Oh, that's my jam at the moment, Telephone Line. Did I say that? That's my jam. Jesus Christ, Kevin, you're 45. Right. But I wondered, why was this sitting at number 3 in the charts when it was released 11 years before? So I'm going, why is it sitting at number 3?
Can I hazard a guess?
Yes.
I'm going to guess he played live for the first time in a long, long time at Hyde Park as some sort of, I don't know what it was, BBC at the prom singer, something along those lines. And am I close?
Close. They played the Legends spot on a Sunday afternoon at Glastonbury in 2016. So Glastonbury has that Sunday afternoon slot.
Yeah, Barry Gibb did not so long ago. Yeah.
So they played that. Next thing you know, an album that released 11 years before ends up number 3 in the charts, and 2 weeks later goes to number 1 and ends up selling over 1 million copies.
Yeah, because what happened was, it's coming back to me now, I can't remember if it was Chris Evans or Chris Moyles or someone did a campaign to get Jeff Lynne and the band back together again. They did do something at Hyde Park, I'm sure of it as well, around that time. So there was a huge, I think it might be I don't know if it was in the back of Glastonbury or what order it was, but there was this mad radio campaign that occurred, and it was, I'm sure it was Chris Moyles, and it was like, let's get ELO back together or whatever. And yeah, it was all around that time. So yeah, the album going to number 1, that's right. It rings bells.
The album went back to number 1, and like when you have a look at it, I mean, the ELO were formed out of the Move, and the Move were Jeff Lynne was in the Move, Bevan was in the Move, and so was Roy Wood. So Roy Wood left to form Wizard.
That's right,
and left Jeff Lynne and Bevan in the band. But the Move were the first ever band played on Radio 1. Now, there's a wee come on, Call the Fire Brigade. That was the first ever song that was played on Radio 1. And everybody thought, when Roy Wood left, everybody thought that the band were going to collapse. Then Jeff Lynne just turned up into one of the greatest pop song writers ever.
Not a problem.
Absolutely hit you. I think ELO's ongoing love with people with a younger generation is due to Guardians of the Galaxy as well. because it's a big. And have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy?
Never watched it.
No. Now, Guardians of
I've
the
heard
Galaxy.
of it though. I've heard of it.
The main guy's got a Walkman, and it's a cassette that his mum left him, and it's ELO and other staple 70s, 80s songs, and ELO play a massive part in the Guardian of the Galaxy stuff. And I reckon that's because you hear songs, and it was quite weird listening to this album, because you hear things you go, I forgot ELO done that, because it's built into your consciousness, that you hear it so many times that you go, was that ELO? Really? Oh, I didn't actually. And it's a fantastic song. And see the day, it was such a feel-good day. You've got the Scotland game the night the sun was out, batter and on, listen to Mr. Blue Sky. You're like, oh, this is great. Life's good. Life is good.
Mate.
Aye, I love that. See, sometimes when we go to these modern ones, we'll maybe end up something like that. A wee classic will fall into our lap like ELO. So,
aye.
Everybody go and put on Mr. Blue Sky before the Scotland game and get yourselves up for it.
I like, do you know the one I like? Sweet Talking Women.
Yes, that's good, eh?
I'm sure that violin was used in some advert, because I recognise it the first time I heard it, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But Sweet Talking Women's, that's right up there for me. Belter of a tune. There's so many good ones.
There is so many good. I think the album sort of tails off towards the end. That's sort of related to, I didn't like Xanadu and that. That's just a bit too. I didn't again. I just can't get onto that. Eh? But the first half of the album is utterly gold, solid gold bars, which was the name of Status Quo's greatest hits. 12 solid gold bars.
ELO's greatest hits should have been big smiling hits.
Yeah,
that's what they make you do.
What I will say about ELO is, there was only one of my friends, Kevin Kelly, who played ELO. If you're going on a night out and he came back to his house for a couple of beers, that's the only time I'd ever heard ELO, when I was in my early 20s. Unfortunately, Kevin passed away a couple of years ago with cancer.
I know Kevin is.
You ken Kevin Kelly, aye? I
know exactly who he is. We played in a charity football thing that was arranged in honour of him as well. After he died, we raised a lot of money.
Aye. So anytime I hear ELO, I think of him. So it was good to actually go back the day with the sun shining. That was a big Tim, was Kevin, eh? So that was my only thing with ELO. Right, I think it's time to say calm down. Let's go.
Subscribe.
Subscribe. Let's see what's going to happen tonight, and hopefully we're all going to be smiling.
Oh, come on, Scotland. We can
just come on, Scotland. Let's everybody. Hope everybody enjoyed tonight. Tell your friends, tell the folk that you didn't like, tell your wives that you didn't talk to, tell everybody about us, and calm down. Let's go, Scotland. See you all later.
Hey.